Ladies and gentlemen, welcome.
4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Fight Chase Muay Thai and Mixed Martial Arts podcast. Hey guys, we're back with part 2 of our first podcast for the Fight Chase podcast. Let's get right into it. I've gone to Sanchai's gym. I've trained with his trainer. I've trained with his fighters, and it's so you just walk in. I mean, you saw it. You walk into a gym, and Lumpini champions are training with you. And if anybody doesn't know, Lumpini is one of the most prestigious Muay Thai titles that you can ever have. It's a big stadium over here, and if you have a Lumpini belt, that's Lumpini and the Raja belts are the elite of Muay Thai, and then you have millions of other stadiums around here, but those are two. Like if you have those on your resume, that's a really big deal.
Yeah, you're definitely world class by any means. So one of the things, because going back to your training with Samart, I was just curious because I've watched a lot of Samart's fights, and I see he actually has a pretty unique way of throwing his teeps. Like I've seen him throw his teeps, and he almost throws them like side kicks. Was that something that he was showing you, or?
As much, yes. He a lot of times when I learned the teep originally, your back foot was kind of almost still straight,
Mm-hmm.
and your front foot's going forward. He shifts his back foot because what he really focuses on is balance. That was one of the biggest things that he was working with me. He's just balance, balance, balance. And it was everywhere from throwing a kick to standing. He was really balanced. He has Sylvie, who does all the research with the legends here. She actually did a video with him, and she was talking about the same thing. Is his stance is very close compared to every other Muay Thai fighter that I had seen, and a Muay Thai stance, like we were talking about, isn't very long, but his was very close. And he said, yeah, because I have balance on both legs. Like he can throw everything and his body doesn't shift. He really focused on not leaning back when you do something. Like when you throw a kick, your body should pretty much still stay up and down. You shouldn't have to reach with it. Because if you're leaning backwards, you're taking away from your range.
Yeah.
Whereas as we kind of see, like, oh, you kind of lean back to get out of the way. And he's like, if they stand there and you're kicking them that hard, well, that's on them. But for the teep, yeah, he shifts. What it is his back foot doesn't stay straight. It shifts almost like it turns his hip, but not exaggerated. So
is he like pivoting his back foot?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's going back flat. He doesn't want you popping up on it. So you're pushing off, like the push of the push kick is on your foot. It's not what you're doing to your opponent. So you're planting, pushing off the ground, and you're snapping that kick into their midsection or their face, whichever is more convenient for you.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. When you were talking about, well, he was saying that it's not a push, it's to hurt somebody with the kick.
Yeah.
And I feel like that I would say the majority of Thai fighters are using it more kind of like how you would use a jab. They're using it to measure. They're using it to off balance. They're not necessarily using it to cause a lot of damage.
And also though, if you look at that, when they're using it like their jab and they're controlling, you're using your opponent coming at you.
Yes.
So now you don't have to put as much effort in, and it's causing the same amount of damage. The opponent's running into your foot as you don't have to throw it, but now if you throw it with intention, like you're kicking, it's going to cause that much more damage.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely has a very unique style of teep kicks for sure.
And I think it has a lot to do with most of the things that I learned with him was stemmed off of his unique base.
Yes. He's a southpaw too, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
The thing, and that was the crazy thing that I had. Everything that I did with him for 2 hours was both
Uh-huh.
stances.
Very
He
interesting.
had so everything from a jab cross, we did it both stances.
Very interesting.
And I had never had somebody do that with me. And he's when he's like, okay, like because most of the stuff I could get, and then he's like, all right, switch, and I would naturally in my head when I reset, my stance went back, and he would just kept laughing at me. He's like, no, 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 wrong. Like my stance went back, being right-handed, I just would go back, and he's like, "Ruh," and then eventually I caught on, but he would laugh at me every time I did it. But yeah, it was really cool that he made a point he said, you can't be good in only one side. He said, you're going to be in positions that will favor you working the other side. And then also you have to keep your opponent guessing. You have to be just as good from both sides.
That's a pretty interesting take, which I agree with. But at the same time, one of the things that drives me crazy is I've never met so many ambidextrous people in my life.
From coaching.
Until I started teaching Muay Thai. Well,
exactly.
I'm like, I'll put your power hand in back, and you're gonna measure, with your weak hand. Well, I don't have a weak hand. It's like, okay, all right.
I don't know how many times that happened to me. And then you teach the kids also?
Yes.
Yeah, the kids, and then they don't know if they're right or left-handed yet.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man, I had so many I'm like, there's no way that 6 of the 10 kids that are standing here are left-handed.
Yeah.
But I had it with, I had the exact same thing happen with a lot of students, and or the thing that really got me was they wanted to switch stances before they could understand the mechanics of their natural way. If you're not naturally gifted, I mean, not gifted to where Olympic athlete, but if you're not naturally gifted where you're going to pick things up really fast, my thing was I can't have you learn both. I need you to learn the mechanics of one way, and once you have that honed, we'll go to the other side.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like to me, that's exactly how you should learn. Yes, you can learn both, but you need to learn how to do one first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because in my mind, it's going to take, I'd say, if you're really consistent, it's going to take you 3 months just to learn the basics of moving left, right, forward, back, your 1-2, your push kick, and your body kicks from one stance, and your defense. It's going to take at least 3 months if you're
good.
really dedicated.
Yes.
And then after that 3 months, then maybe you could start mixing some switch stance. But I would say at least 3 months before you start messing everything up.
And that's what it is you overwhelm yourself,
Yeah.
and people, but again, it goes back to the Western style is we try to emulate what we see fighters do.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone does it. I mean, I've done it myself, with different things where I'm like, I'm going to try that because I saw it on TV.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not trying like running off the cage and the jump kick or whatever, but I'm, things that you see something, you're like, huh. I remember we used to do it in jiu-jitsu. You see like a crazy move that went off, and that was like the hot topic of the next class. It's like, oh, we're going to learn these today. I'm like, we've never learned those in our lives, but okay, because it was in the UFC.
Yeah.
So like out here, again, they're going back to building fighters. There, we have a lot of people that are just kind of emulating what they see on TV. I mean, I'm not saying, and it's okay. You're trying new things. You're having fun. I'm not against that whatsoever. I was really dedicated, and I know you are too, is building a fighter from not even a fighter, but a person that's going to train Muay Thai in a traditional way from the ground up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I wasn't trying, like I said before, the spinning stuff or a jump knee or whatever is cool, but once we got them to do the basics well, and the most gratifying thing to me was when I saw students that they didn't have to be the most athletic students, but they've done the repetition so many times that one day you'll look over and you're like, wow, those are like really good punches, or those are really good combinations.
Yeah.
And like you didn't have to like give them any extra attention, but they most of my students were very dedicated. They would come in, multiple times a week, and they enjoyed being there. So when you see that leap, and that was awesome. That to me was great. To know that I showed them as much as I could of the way I've learned here, and was able to convey that same technique and knowledge to them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just so hard because, everybody's out there and they're trying to get information from so many different places, on the internet. They're watching stuff on YouTube. And if you're one of those people that do that, I think it's good, but you just kind of, your focus can't be scattered. You can't be trying to learn Sinchai's cartwheel kick and at the same time just learning how to slip a jab cross. You need to stick to the basics, learn them very well, and then you can start branching out and start, trying all the cool stuff. You know what I mean? Well, I guess it's not that you can't try it, but it shouldn't be your main focus. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, you can't if you can't throw a jab cross and you can do a really impressive cartwheel kick, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how many times you watched Sanchai throw that, but it does not land often.
Yeah. Yeah, I think too, a lot of people think they know how to do, there's tons of people that yeah, I know how to throw a jab cross, but it's do you really know how to throw a jab cross? It's you really have to look at yourself, that's one of the things that I really think is important, is, instead of watching these instructionals on YouTube, film study is such an important thing to me. Watch yourself sparring, take note what you look like when you're sparring, and, compare it to somebody that's at the professional level. Look at what they're doing, look at what you're doing. Does it look the same? I mean, it doesn't have to look exactly the same. You're two different people, but are you throwing your cross and your foot is coming, it's in the air when you're throwing your cross, your foot's way too light, or, are you not keeping your hand up? Well, whatever the deal is, it's always good to kind of, look at that.
The best thing, most of the time in martial arts, we get people that are very humble, so that helps. But of course, I think striking is one of those things in the States, you get less humble people. Jiu-jitsu is very humbling. Mm-hmm. So that was a different aspect. You're out there and you want to be a tough guy. Somebody's going to roll you up and you're not going to have a good day. Whereas anybody can land a lucky punch. And I would always tell my students, I do not like getting punched in the face. I have never liked getting punched I just don't like it. So anybody can do that. And it kind of gives you that puncher's chance. Mm-hmm. So they're not, you get wound up and people, they want to do these things and you skip over the knowing how to do it. And speaking of comparing yourself, I record all of my training sessions out here in Thailand with multiple cameras. Usually 2 to 3 GoPros in different parts of the area that I'm training at. And I'll go back and I watch them all. And I remember while I'm watching them is what they're telling me. Whoever I was training with, what they were telling me at that point. And this goes into another thing. I'm sure we'll get into all these in different episodes of different training people that I've trained with. But Sagat, and people who don't know, Sagat is the actual human that the Street Fighter character was made after, and he's another one of the legends here in Thailand that I've been able to train with. But getting to that, I was throwing my cross, and he corrected my elbow positioning by an inch. Mm-hmm. So you have to be able to take the criticism. Like you were saying, people think they know how to do these things. I remember my first week at Juan's at Vanderlei Silva's when I started training there with George Lopez because our other coach was out and I wanted to learn Muay Thai. And I got there and I was like, cool, I'm going to learn how to fight. That's what was in my head. I had never been in a MMA atmosphere before on that kind of level where we had world-class fighters in there, out of there all the time. Our fight team was really legit at that time. And I remember, like, after the first week, I'm like, how did I not get my ass beat when I was a kid? Like, I don't know how to throw a punch. I don't know how to do any of this, you know? But if you're open to it, and that's the biggest thing, is you get the people that aren't. There's very few, very, very few actually, that'll stick to it, that think they know everything from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that excel are the ones that are open to the criticism and open to being able to learn more. So yeah, watching your video is a huge thing. You know, set your phone up. I mean, obviously ask your coach, but set your phone up and record even your techniques. Your technique that's what I like to record when I'm training, is my technique. And I want to see if I'm taking in the knowledge that they're giving me and I'm making the right corrections, so that I'm always aware of that. And that's what's cool, is every time I train with a new person, everyone here, especially if I'm training with like a legend, they have their own way. Like you were saying, with Samar, his kicks and things like that, they all have a thing, you know, that they do. So you can't take all of their things and make a new, you know, fighter. I just take a little of what really strikes a chord with me, you know. And like I was saying, the Sagat thing was just my elbow thrown across. He's like, you'll get more power if you just move your elbow just a little like this. And it wasn't like he's like, oh, you don't know how to throw a punch. It was just, here, do this.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, all right. And he goes, yeah. And then I don't know your experience, but the trainers out here are very, very encouraging when you're doing something. Like, they really will play it up to you, you know, like they're cheering for you. Like I trained one place when I was in Phuket at Phuket Top Team, and I was training, and that's when I was doing the pad holders course. And for every time I would go in, and I would hold pads. Like, I was doing the course to hold pads, and I was holding pads for a fighter for a couple of weeks. And when I would put on the belly belt, it was like a joke. They're like, oh, champion. But it was very playful and encouraging. Like, everything that the trainers do, even when they're getting on you, it's still kind of playful, and it keeps you learning. I had not been with a coach out here yet that was discouraging in really any sort of way. Even when I was getting like conditioned after training, and, you know, beating your stomach with the pads and things like that. I don't know if nobody's seen that. Like, you'll have a trainer or one of your partners next to you while you're doing sit-ups, and they'll take a Thai pad, and as you sit up and you clench your muscles in your core, they smack you in the stomach with the Thai pad, and very hard. And it's core conditioning. And so when they're doing that, but when you're done, everybody's happy. It's very encouraging. I had trained in the States long time ago, even before Vanderlei's, at a gym in Vegas that wasn't around for very long. And it was a big MMA gym. And I went in there, and the coaches were just jerks. Like, they already had their few people that they were cool with, and it was a big class, but they were making fun of people that couldn't do certain things. And I was like, I went there for like 2 weeks, and I'm like, this isn't the vibe that I want. And it's kind of the same thing when I come out here. Like, you get such a positive vibe. I could go and train and just be wrecked. Like, be like, that was the worst training. I mean, I've had training. We all have training that we're just not feeling it. You know, that day you're like, that was the worst training I've ever had. But out here, they're so positive. I feel like I want to go back the next day, though. There's no, oh man, they're going to do that to me again tomorrow, for me personally.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, because I like how they celebrate. Like, if they're teaching you something, you keep doing it wrong, but then when you finally get it, like, they're celebrating for you. Like, they look, like, most of the trainers that I have, like, they look genuinely happy, you know, if they're able to get something across to you.
It's always a big, yeah, perfect, yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all. I love that, and it helps you too. Like, you've given them, like, you solidified what they taught you. So it's like, all right, cool. And you've known for the last 10 minutes that you were doing it not the way they wanted it. So they're not going to tell you that you did it right. You know what I mean? They're not going to just, oh, okay, let's go on to the next thing.
Yeah, I think one of the hard things, probably, I'm sure you experience it going and training with so many different top level trainers, is everybody has a different style,
Yeah.
and you start using one person's style, and then you go somewhere else, and they're like, nah, do this, do that.
Well, exactly. And that's what I was saying is you can't take all of their specifics and make a fighter. I
Hmm.
have to, because every fighter, and that's why they all have their own things. Is everyone is different.
Hmm.
What works for you is not going to work for me. You're way taller than I am. Like even in that aspect. So what works for you isn't going to work for me. And that's because of, yeah, man, I get a different view from every one of these fighters because at the top level, they had to be very original. They had to have like a specific thing that really worked for them. When I trained, even with Manichai, and he's at a top level, but he's very young still. And when I went there, I was like, look, your low kicks are lethal. I want to learn that. And obviously we'll get into that in one of the episodes, but to learn his specific low kick, like you were asking me before, how did it work? And what you had noticed, how we had talked about before, what you noticed you thought was happening, and how he sets that up and how he makes it so lethal. So it's like I kind of look to get a little from everybody.
Hmm.
And then when they say, oh, that's not right, I just correct it to what they want.
Hmm.
So it's just kind of like putting, money in the bank. Yeah, maybe the biggest one ever, and it's mostly in the States, but I've had it a few here, is your hook. How do you throw your hook? And that's like your hand. That's the biggest left-handed, right-handed type of, like, there's a black and white to everyone that will tell you how to throw a hook. I've not had one person ever say you can have your hand up and down like a coffee cup, or yeah, you can have your knuckles up either way.
Yeah.
Everyone has a specific way that they want you to do it. So that's one of the things is every time I go and I'll throw it, and if I'm throwing it a certain way, they're like, okay, and if they want me to change it, okay, whatever. But I've had the coffee cup thing, hold your knuckles like you're holding a coffee cup so you won't hit your thumb. And then even just with Samar, he's like, no. And he actually had I guess what is it, my second knuckles were up a little too high. And he's like,
Uh,
no, no. He goes, just tilt your hand down a little more. So, I
hmm.
mean, even in gloves, they're paying attention to those details. I
Yeah.
don't recall catching anything like that when I was in the States.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Like I
know,
never had a coach say, "Hey, move your foot 2 centimeters to the left." Like that's how it feels like out here. Is they pay attention and they've seen this stuff so many times that they can go, "No, no, 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 just move your." Like he literally was like, "You need to hit a little lower with these knuckles." Like, oh,
yeah.
okay.
And how many times that's the cool thing about Muay Thai too, is like there's plenty of techniques that I think that I'm doing correctly, and then you get with the right person and they'll give you that little tweak and you're like, oh wait, this makes it way better.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean,
And,
and
and
I,
you know that a
I
lot of it's just like, just the fundamentals. Like I've learned the fundamentals probably like 15 years ago. But, it's like over time, so many people have taught me so many different things. Like I come to the point where I'm like, well, you're not throwing anything perfect. You know what I mean?
right.
Like you always could make improvements.
Oh yeah, and that's another thing. Is the biggest part is you have to be open to it.
Yeah.
You've worked with fighters. I've worked with fighters. We were training at a gym with tons of fighters, and you saw the people that were just not going to evolve.
Yeah.
You saw the guys that were like, "I'm good," and maybe had 5 wins at amateur level, and they're like, "I'm good. I know what I'm doing."
Yeah.
But then those fighters like Khalil that have excelled are always evolving, and they're very humble, and they know that if there's a hole, they have to fix it, or if they have to improve on things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy too because I've worked with professional fighters, that are on a much higher level than me, but they're in my class and they're still listening to me like they would anybody else, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
'cause you can't like whoever's teaching, like even if you disagree with what they're telling you at first, like a lot of times there's something that you're not seeing, you know what I mean? Like, or there may be something that you're not seeing.
But that's one of the things with
time.
that is though is it's kind of how I see it is I believe I've never taken one of your classes, but I've trained with you tons of times when we were at Vanderleys. And I feel with my classes is I wanted them to be very authentic. I wanted to know exactly what I was teaching the people. Like I've discussed with you before about teaching jiu-jitsu is I don't ever want to show someone the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I show someone something, I need it to be either the right way to someone. Do you know what I mean? Like I need it to be like a way that I was showed, a way that I learned that was the right way. I don't want to just YouTube something and go, yep, this is it because so-and-so on YouTube did it.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things. The counter to what I'm saying is we have a lot of people out there that will claim to be coaches and be it, I'm not going to name any like business names, but now you see big box training facilities, right? That do cardio kickboxing or whatever. And then they'll also be like, yeah, we are on our kickboxing program. They're trying to teach Muay Thai or something like that. And maybe they've gone to Thailand or seen videos. I don't know what it is, but I've seen a lot of videos of very poor from coaches, very poor technique. And then they're relaying that to their students. So I'm not saying I'm the best coach ever. I'm saying that I coached the best I could.
Yeah.
With what I knew. I am not anywhere, I would not compare myself, but I know what I put out was as authentic as I possibly could, and I knew that it was right from what I could tell someone. That's why I didn't show weird, flashy stuff that, one, isn't practical, and I didn't do 20 punch combinations because I would tell my students, if I hit you 20 times and you're still standing, I did it all wrong. You know, like, there should never have to be a 20 punch combination. Like, you should have had power in the first 5. You know, I had a few things that I would tell my students that I would hope that they would help them progress down the road. And like I was saying is, I think that in the States, the industry, same thing that happened with jiu-jitsu, is it's getting watered down. Because cardio kickboxing is a huge thing. Because cardio kickboxing is great. When I ran my cardio kickboxing classes, I just said, look, I'm not going to correct your technique unless you're going to hurt yourself. I just need you guys to work out, put, you know, the hard work in and sweat. The class after this, in an hour, will be Muay Thai. I will teach you everything. And then if you're in my Muay Thai classes and I do see you in the cardio classes, I'll correct you. But other than that, like if you're just here to work out and sweat, I get it. As long as you're not going to hurt yourself and you're not throwing something that's going to hurt your hands or whatever, that's fine. But I think that it's the cardio kickboxing type of coaching and things like that that's kind of melting back over, and people are thinking they're learning Muay Thai or kickboxing or something like that, and they're going to get taught the wrong way, honestly. You know, things that aren't practical.
I think if you went in with the idea, knowing what you were actually doing, like if you knew that you weren't really learning kickboxing and that you were just getting a great workout in, that would be one thing. But if you think that you're going in there actually learning how to defend yourself, like that's not good at all.
And that's going to conclude part 2 of our first episode. But don't worry, we're coming out with part 3 right now. Any questions or comments and you need to get a hold of us, check out fightchase.com. You can send us any messages there, and all our social medias on fightchase.com.
Thank you very much.